Welcome back. It's 10:19 on Britain's Newsroom. Forgot where I was then. On GB News with me, Ben Leo, and Bev Turner. And we're joined by former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and author and broadcaster Amy Nickell Turner in the studio, which is a very apt lineup on International Women's Day, surrounded by lovely ladies.
You can identify, Ben, that's fine.
Only at weekends, Dawn.
We'll accept you. It's nearly a weekend, it's
only
Friday,
Only weekends, Ben Jemima comes out in Soho.
That actually suits you?
What, Ben Jemima?
Yeah.
I could probably pass for it. I'd rather not, though.
Do we need it, though? Do we need International Women's Day, ladies? Dawn?
We shouldn't do. We shouldn't need International Women's Day because all women should support one another all the time. The fact that we are expected to make a big deal of it on one particular day, I find a bit disturbing still. However, when we're living in an era where women's rights, I feel, Bev, are being spun backwards really fast, I feel like...
By who?
By men, mostly, and trans women. I feel like now... I am being told to sit down and shut up more than I was working as a young female journalist on a male-dominated newspaper back in the 80s.
Do you really? But who's...
Yes,
so
I do.
So when you say you're being told to shut up, you mean you're being told...
Not literally,
that your rights are somehow less important than certain other minority groups?
Yes, I think female rights now have become almost like a game of trumps. My rights out-trump yours. Yeah. Everyone has rights. Everyone has human rights. Trans women have rights. Women have rights. No one's rights are greater than the other. But I feel now we are locked into, considering trans women want to be women, think they're women, are locked into this battle of sisterhood, and it shouldn't be that way.
No. Amy?
I do agree with Dawn.
Oh, steady on, Amy.
Why does it take one day? Well, it should be International Women's Day every day, and the fact that we still have to have International Women's Day surely suggests that the inequality is still there. And, of course, the statistics do back that up, because it remains the fact that women can expect to earn 15% less than men. I think all the time about the medical misogyny that I see regularly, that women's health conditions don't have the research just because they didn't bother, because they've only started researching reproductive things since about 1990, because it was all the male stuff. I think about when I got in the car today and I put my seatbelt on, and I have the knowledge that that seatbelt was designed for a man's body and not a woman's body.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Even everything is designed around
what's the name
men.
of the writer who drew real attention to that? Caroline Perez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a book on medical misogyny.
That's right.
And the whole world is kind of built around men. Even the fact that when you take a paracetamol, it takes into account the average male body weight rather than women's when it says the suggested dose.
Also, they do that with calories
like
as well, I think.
But yeah, they do.
Well,
They do
let me
pretty
pick you
much
up on a
everything.
point that Dawn mentioned about women's rights being eroded by certain groups, including trans women, who you are a big supporter of. You are happy with trans women being in women's toilets, playing in women's sports. So, I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't say women's rights are being eroded, yet I support men playing biological sport.
I can't see any evidence of trans women eroding women's rights, but what I can see a lot of evidence is of trans women's rights being eroded by women. I see that a lot.
Amy, how can you say that about sport? I can give you just one example of sport. Leah Thomas, the male-born female, male-born swimmer swimming in women's races. That is a cast iron
Leah
example.
Thomas was playing in America in a college-level team, and the following year she was beaten by a cis woman. So it's not really fair.
cis
And
women.
you know what?
We're just women.
The thing that I find funny is people only care that when trans women play sports when they win. So it's the principle, they can play, but they can't win.
Amy, sorry, it's the safety aspect of it as well. How many videos and clips have we seen online of biological men playing women's sports, playing rugby, manhandling them, throwing them around? You wouldn't have
I haven't seen that many.
It does happen.
Yeah, there was.
I've seen a lot of... But my son plays contact rugby, and I found that terrifying. That's got nothing to do with the gender of the kids
imagine you as a
he's
woman playing against rugby against a biological man.
I can't imagine myself
support
playing
that.
rugby, I have to say.
But you see, it does happen, and I think when you say, well, it only matters if they win, that's only when people are incensed. Yeah, because sport is about winning.
But they rarely win.
It really matters if a woman is beaten by a
win. Do you know
male-born
the
human being?
vanishingly small numbers of trans women who are even in sport? Because actually they're very unlikely because of conversations like this. If you were a trans woman living in the UK now, would you want to go get into sport?
Good. I'd like you to do sport, absolutely, but I don't want you to go and
park run.
biological
You know, people
women.
going along to park run to try and have a fun day, and now people are saying, oh, trans women shouldn't be allowed that. So if you were a trans woman living in the UK now, would you feel welcome anywhere?
You talk about parkrun, but that's a fine example. The record holder in Aberystwyth, for example, in Wales, is a biological man who absolutely exceeds any records held by women.
But it's
and
not
do you know what parkrun did?
It's not a competitive.
Do you know what parkrun did? They deleted all their records and said, look, we're gonna appease to this cheating, because that's what it is, by biological men, and we're going to scrap all records and ruin the fun for everyone.
I feel like you've never been to a parkrun. Because it's not it's not competitive. It's innately not competitive.
I've played a lot of sport. I play probably more sport and I'm into more fitness than probably most people. And I understand the innate biology of biological men. It's not just about reducing...
I have a question then.
Hang on one second. It's not just about reducing testosterone once someone's gone through male puberty. They have more muscle mass, they have more lung capacity, bigger bone density, and that stays with them for life.
I know all the arguments, but then...
I just find it ironic that you're here saying women's rights are being eroded, yet you are...
I don't say they've been eroded, I say they've stagnated.
But you're happy to...
They're not progressing as much as they could against men. And also, can I just put to you Caster Semenya? I always think of this example. Do you remember Caster Semenya?
Yeah, the runner. She's intersex.
Yes, and she has the bone density and the lung capacity and all the things that are levelled.
That's fine, because she wasn't a biological man.
But hang on a minute. How the makeup, the complexity of biology and human experience and condition can be in the form of someone like Caster Semenya. So why are you willing to accept her natural advantage?
She's a rare example.
Michael Phelps, massive wingspan, alien wingspan, some would say.
And he's a man and competes in male races.
Is that unfair?
No, because he was born a man.
Because he was racing against men.
And trans people are born... Trans.
He wasn't racing against weaker, feebler women.
He was racing against weaker, feebler men who could never have his wingspan. So if your argument is that this whole biological difference...
While we're on this issue, can we have a look at a clip, actually? This is Labour's Angela Eagle, because we're talking about this from the perspective of a Conservative Party backdrop, Conservative government. So we often think, how would this issue play out under Labour? Well, we've got a little bit of an insight now as to what that might look like. Here you go. Here's Angela Eagle.
We'll also strengthen the law so anti-LGBT plus hate crimes are treated as aggravated offences, which is and there'll be a much-needed modernising of gender recognition processes, which are humiliating and...
So, effectively, Dawn, what Angela Eagle is saying is that trans rights are going to be further consolidated and further empowering to people under a Labour government.
Look, everybody has rights, right? Trans people should have rights, women should have rights, even men should have rights, and that hurts, believe me.
Thank you.
But even, not you, I didn't say you specifically, but even men should have rights. No one's rights trumps... I didn't really understand what Angela was saying there. There's a lot of words...
Sorry, it was a little brief.
No, there was a lot of words she used. None of it really made much sense, to be honest with you. And I'm slightly disappointed because I feel that she should be more pro-women. As I said...
Well, one of the things that she was saying there is that gender transitioning should be made easier and less humiliating.
It's about the gender recognition certificate, isn't it?
Yes.
And actually, this originated with who we're talking about a lot today, Theresa May. Theresa May thought this would be her gay marriage, her equal marriage moment, and she could be seen as a progressive politician with this whole trans rights progression. However, then it got started to be used as the political football that we see it is used today. All the gender recognition certificate does is mean that your birth certificate, your marriage certificate and your death certificate will align with the gender in which you lived your life. And if it was open to abuse, that's also acknowledged, and if they'd be found to use fraudulently, then that's taken into consideration. And in the example of Spain, the GRC would be removed. So if you went to try and get a GRC, which is often the argument, you know, oh, a man could walk in and just say he's a woman, that's fraud. So that wouldn't work. And in Ireland, in Spain, they have this, and it works very, very well.
But it's interesting that you use the word fraud, because for me, so much of what we are being asked to do, and I can separate, I think, that no one wants to be unkind to an individual trans person.
No.
I don't want to see a world in which, as you say, trans people can't freely walk down the street and live their lives, because the vast majority just want to live a quiet life and get on with it.
We always get on with it, yes.
But being asked, if I am asked to look at a man born a male in a dress and say that is a woman, you're asking me to lie.
I think we're imagining such different things, aren't we? Like, I'm picturing Brianna Guy, I'm picturing Sean Fay, I'm picturing India Willoughby.
Well, India Willoughby is now threatening to go to the police because J.K. Rowling called him a man.
When you see her, do you honestly, in your heart, ever think man. Because I don't believe...
I see a trans woman.
I don't think that even matters.
Really, see a
India
woman.
Willoughby is
So-
asked...
And that's a simple...
No, it's a trans woman. There's a difference. It's a trans woman and a woman. That's it. There's no cis women, by the way. We're women. Okay, that's it.
But it's just a prefix, isn't it? We're blonde women, brown-haired women, broadcasting women, pretty women. Why see it so differently?
Amy, I think you're missing the point by saying, does this person look like a real woman? That's not the thing here.
Everything about her is a woman.
The problem with India and J.K. Rowling is India Willoughby is threatening to censor the free speech and the biological reality and facts of human life by going to the police because she called him a man. Nothing to do with the appearance.
If you look at India's passport, there's an F. Every fibre of India's being is
Well, it isn't every fibre of her being. That's what's interesting.
No.
Professor Robert Winston, very famously said, your biological sex is identifiable in every single cell in your body.
That quote has been... It's been criticised. It's been...
Chromosomally. You can't change your chromosomes.
I'm not sure this argument gets us anywhere, because India should never, in a million years, be treated as a male or called such.
I would treat her as a trans woman. It's a biological now.
What J.K. Rowling said is undeniably derogatory, and
What,
it was
calling them a man?
Ben, you know that that's intended to be derogatory. You just know it.
Well, sorry, but India's got a form himself of being abusive and doing the same to other people.
Why allow yourself to say himself? Why do that?
Because India Willoughby is a biological man, and I'm within my rights to say you are a man. I am not going to lie, Amy. I'm not going to lie to myself and distort my reality to make other people feel better.
It's really hateful.
Facts over feelings.
We do so many things to make people feel better all the time.
I support trans rights. I want people to live in a happy, loving, accepting, equal world.
You're a kind person. When I came in here, you said you liked this top, even though it's covered in cat hair. You know, see, you're a kind person. You say lies to make people feel better.
But I'm not going to distort my own reality to make someone feel better.
That's not your reality. You're telling yourself a new reality to make yourself feel right in your argument.
Right.
So much of this is about language. And for me, India Willoughby is a trans woman, and it's those 5 letters that really matter. Because that matters completely to all of us because of the biology and because of your first point about medical testing. If we start including trans women in the medical testing, we are still losing because we are physiologically so different.
OK, fascinating. Amy Nickell, Dawn Neeson, thank you very much. Let's get your news with Sophia Wensler.